Hey guys, welcome back to another video of Pokeking. From today onwards, we are starting a brand new series of Pokemon What If, in which we will see an alternate universe where Ash has a dad here. Well, obviously he has a dad in his own universe, but in this universe, Ash's dad was with him for his whole life, but he is a drunkard. He drunk way too alcohol. He's a gambler. He's addict. So he abused his wife Delia Ketchum in this series. And when a day he was way too drunk, he killed her. And after that, he started abusing his son, used him like a slave, and after enduring so much torture, Ash decided to gather up and make an alliance with Pokemons to free himself from this whole ordeal. And with that, this series begins. So if you're new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the bell icon, and I know videos are coming way too slow, but I am trying to get things done, and the videos will be regular. Every day there would be about two videos if possible. I'm hoping for. So please give me some like button that would help me improve my motivation on doing this, and subscribe the channel for more videos like this. So let's begin today's episode.
It is a peaceful night in the small town of Pallet, or so everyone thought. In the town, there were only two families living in it, the Oaks, who are related to the great Professor Oak, known all over Kanto as the main Pokemon professor in Kanto. The next family are the Ketchum. They are a relatively new family. No one knows where they came from but were welcomed to the small community of Pallet, which at the time was only of one wife. Delia Ketchum was a kind, gentle woman and had cooking skills that could rival the chefs at a five-star restaurant. She was a part-time breeder for a while, but when she married her husband she stopped being a Pokemon breeder. No one knew why though, but she still comes over to Professor Oak's ranch to help care for the Pokemon there. Delia's husband Richard Dick Ketchum was an aspiring Pokemon trainer. He had also competed in a few Pokemon tournaments and was about to challenge the Elite Four and champion of Kanto, until he sustained an injury on his travels that caused him to walk with a cane for the rest of his life, which stopped him from being able to travel. They have one son, Ash Ketchum. He was a weird child, instead of being loud and childish like most children his age. Ash was quiet and always reading books about Pokemon, even some of his mother's old breeder books. When he turned 4, he started going into the forest near Pallet for a few hours and would come back slightly dirty but was smiling, though no one seemed to notice this except for his mother. They seemed to be like a somewhat normal happy family, with their few quirks, but as soon as no one was around and the door to their house closed, everything changed. As the saying says, nothing is as it seems. This saying perfectly describes the family. Once behind closed doors, the entire family characteristics change. Richard is a heavy drinker, with a very low fuse that just got shorter when he drank. He is also very abusive towards his wife and son, both physically and mentally. He gave Ash a huge scar over his left eye using a broken beer bottle. Luckily he is still able to see out of that eye, but the attack changed the color of that eye from a warm chocolate brown to a deep crimson red. This happened when Ash was 3. Sadly though, a year later Delia lost her life from her so-called husband's short fuse and drinking. Richard got so drunk that night, he grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed Delia repeatedly in the chest unknowingly that Ash saw the entire thing. Ash just stared scared. Delia saw him and silently mouthed, "I'm sorry. And, I love you," just as the life left her eyes. Seeing this, Ash silently ran upstairs and began to cry for the loss of his mother. After Richard stabbed Delia the 15th time, he stopped and paused, realizing what he's done. He remembered that the entire Oak family went to Vermilion City that day for a week-long vacation, so no one heard Delia's scream, forgetting about Ash who was asleep upstairs from crying. Richard then removed the knife in Delia's and began to wipe his fingerprints off the weapon. He then went into the garden out back and buried both the weapon and the bloodied rag. He then put on some gloves and began trashing the entire downstairs area, making it look like a random break that had gone wrong. Richard then stepped outside and broke the door in. Richard then called the police, acting terrified about what had supposedly happened. The cops came by as soon as possible. They got Richard's alibi and began to do a search of the area. After doing so, they left the area, telling Richard that he would need to stay somewhere else for the next 2 to 3 weeks. After returning to their house, Dick then turned his 4-year-old son into his slave, forcing him to do all the cleaning, cooking, laundry, gardening, etc. Ash still has his mother's old breeder books and notebooks, which he keeps hidden in his bedroom closet under some loose floorboards. Ash then began trainer school a year later and was a prodigy at the school. He was even ahead of Gary Oak, which caused a bitter rivalry to form from the young Gary. Gary had then told all the children of the school, saying that he was a loser and wasn't worth hanging around with. Since being the grandson of the Professor Oak, all the children believed him, and the teachers were beginning to think so as well and began to ignore him in class and forgetting that he was even there sometimes. But he still excelled in his classes, being the top student in the school. Ash has only one escape from the loneliness and feels truly free, and that is when he is in the forest playing with the young Pokémon in it. His main friends though are a Pichu that has one ear slightly shorter than the other and a clipped tail, a Nidoran, and a Zorua. Each were a different color than the original coloration of their kind, but Ash doesn't care about it, only caring that they are his best friends, and that's what matters most to him. It also thanks to them that he is able to understand and speak Poke speech. This was easy because he talks more about the Pokémon than with you humans, so it was easy to learn. He meets his group of friends by the biggest tree in the forest and hangs out with them for the next 4 to 5 hours. Just as the sun starts to go down, Ash says his goodbyes to his friends and heads back to his home. On his way back, he wishes he could just disappear into the forest and stay with his friends. But knowing Richard, he would act worried and call the police to search for him, and they would drag him back home, sighing. His good mood gone as soon as he hears Dick's order of food. Sighing again, though this time silently, he entered the house and went towards the kitchen to begin to cook dinner for his father. What Ash didn't know was that his wish would come true that night. He didn't notice the other Pokémon watching him play earlier, or that they were following him on his way back home. They then did something impossible for normal Pokémon except for Giratina and few Dark-type Pokémon. They fell into the shadows and began to travel through them into the young hatchlings. Ash's home. They all wondered why the little human hatchling seemed very sad and afraid to be back home. On this day, Ash will finally be free. Ketchum Residence 8 to 30 pages. Ash is standing on his stool in front of the stove cooking dinner for his father. He doesn't even deserve that title. I'm just going to refer to him as Dick from now on. Ash says mentally as he finishes up making the food. Ash did get a few traits from his late mother, and that is her cooking skill. Hurry the hell up, kid, I'm starving over here. His Dick said. Shish just silent, grit his teeth and began to put the food on the plates. Tonight's meal was carbonara pasta with garlic bread and to drink 4 cans of beer. Upon placing the cans of beer on the table, Ash is then smacked in the head by Dick. Ash, after receiving the hit, falls to the ground face first. Took you long enough, next time I won't be so. Dick then harshly stomps on Ash's back, causing Ash to bite his lip to stop the pained shout in his mouth. Knowing if he did so, Dick would use the studded belt on him again. Dick then removes his foot from Ash's back. What are you still doing here? Go to room, and don't think of grabbing any food from the fridge or the counter. You came home late and made me wait for my dinner. Your punishment is no food for tonight or breakfast tomorrow. If I find out that you took food, well. After Ash got up, Dick then punched him hard in the gut, causing Ash to lose his breath and clutch his stomach, folding his knees and his head hitting the hardwood flooring. You will become well acquainted with the ground, as my new housewife, Dick said, smirking. Ash froze and slowly nodded, knowing what Dick meant. Well, what are you still doing here? You want to become my new housewife now? Richard said loudly, causing Ash to begin shaking. Ash then sits upward and shakes his head, no, his body still shaking and his eyes full of fear. Well then, get out of my face, you stupid brat, and I better not hear a peep coming from you tonight or else, Dick said, implying the new punishment if he did not comply. Ash nodded again and stood up, still clutching his stomach, and rushed upstairs to his room. Dick began laughing as he began to eat his food and drinking the beer, not noticing that he was being watched from beings hidden in the shadows, or the glares and heavy growling, snarling coming from them. The beings in the shadows soon head to where they suspect the hatchling's bedroom, staying within the shadows. When they reached the boy's bedroom, or what was supposed to be his bedroom, the room was, if there was light, had soft blue-colored walls, and a few shelves filled with dust. The floorboards in the room were all badly damaged and stained with a few blots of a crusty dark red color, same on the walls, which was what they suspected to be the hatchling's dried blood. There was a small ratty old mattress in the far corner of the room. Under a window was his bed right next to a window. On the mattress were a very thin black blanket and a small lump underneath it. They soon figured out what the lump was. It wasn't hard though, since it was shaking and silent sobs could be heard through some of the group's super sensitive hearing. Ash, not noticing the audience hidden in the shadows of his room, continues to silently sob into his Pikachu plush toy. The last gift his mother got him. His one comfort, that plush toy, hugging it reminds him of his mother and helps him get to sleep. Ash soon falls asleep, tears still falling down his face. Within the shadows growls could be heard, though this time it was even louder than before. Enraged at how despicable the human thing is, harming his own hatchling, though 3 out of the 11 beings hidden within the shadows were growling louder than the rest. Though another 3 just stared at Ash with sad eyes. How dare that thing do such a thing to a hatchling, a voice snarled out, receiving multiple angered growls of agreements. They began thinking of multiple ways to end the pathetic thing's life for doing such a thing. Suddenly everyone within the shadows felt part of their group leave. Turning around, they saw that the ones that left were in the human hatchling's room. Some of the beings wanted to jump out of the shadow and drag the ones that left back in. "Wait," one voice shouted out, causing everyone in the shadows to stop moving. "Let them go. They could make it easier for us to talk with the hatchling if he has friends around him. Give them a few minutes with him, and then I will go out all right," the voice stated, and got some growls of protest, mostly from the parents of the beings that left. "Listen, he has never harmed them before, and I highly doubt he would harm them now. Just give them a chance, all right," the voice stated, gaining a few grumbles. All of them soon turned to see what would happen. Just as he turned, they noticed that their hatchlings had just made it to the human hatchling's bed. In Ash's room, the 3 small figures had just jumped onto Ash's bed and began to slowly move towards Ash's curled up form. As they got closer, they noticed that he was shaking in his sleep and was whimpering, probably a nightmare. The sky became cloudless to reveal a full moon, and the light of the moon had entered through Ash's window, revealing who the dark figures were. They were Ash's friends from the forest, Zorua, Pichu and Nidoran. The 3 friends just stopped moving forward and stared at their friend's curled up form in shame. They didn't stop. What happened? They could have done something earlier. They should have done something to help their friend. Shaking out of her depressing mood, Zorua slowly walked forward and gently nudged the top of Ash's head. Though this was a bad thing to do. You see, Ash, after going through almost 2 years of abuse, had become a light sleeper, so when he felt the nudge on his head, his eyes opened in fright. Thinking that Dick was going to do what he said downstairs to him, Ash curled in more and tried to move away from what he believed to be Richard. Zorua, watching this, was shocked. Before realizing his fear, she spoke softly. Ash, it's me, Zorua. Ash, it's all right, it's just me and the others," Zorua states, making sure to keep her voice as low as gentle, not wanting to scare Ash. Ash didn't stop shaking. He actually began to shake even more. Nidoran and Pichu looked at each other before slowly walking forward to Ash. "Ash, it's true, it's me, Pichu, Zorua, and Nidoran. Come on, don't tell me you forgot us. I mean, we just played our favorite game of hide and tackle," Pichu said. Nidoran gave a grunt of agreement. Ash's shaking almost stopped. He then lifts his head slightly from his curled up body and opens his discolored eyes, which still have fear in them. "Pi Pichu, Zorua, me Nidoran. Ho, how are you here? How did you get in seaside?" Ash stutters out. Nidoran gently speaks up. "We had a friend of ours take us here," Nidoran stated. Ash was still shaking but was uncurled and sitting cross-legged on his bed. He didn't know about the silent watchers hiding in the shadows. "We got worried about you today, Ash, and not just us. When we were heading back to our home, we ran into our parents. They said they smelled something off about you. They said that you smelled like you were sad." Zorua started slowly, doing her best to not startle Ash. Ash though slowly nodded but felt like he wasn't going to like the next bit that was coming. So, we got worried about you and we decided to follow you home. Ash, why didn't you tell us? Zorua continued, and Ash slowly paled. Tell you what? Ash got out. Zorua shook her head. Pichu decided to get the last bit out. Ash, we saw what happened downstairs. Why didn't you tell us? We could have told one of the adults at our camp. Pichu said. Ash paled more. Pichu noticed his friend's paling skin but decided to continue. So he moved onto his friend's crossed legs and stared up at the fear-filled eyes of his friend. Ash, we heard him talking about what he would do to you. Heck, from the way you were acting we could tell. Why didn't you tell us you were getting abused? Pichu said. And don't try to deny it, we saw what we saw, Ash. We care about you. You're our friend. So tell me, why didn't you tell us? Pichu continued. Pichu could feel Ash shaking harder than earlier. Ash had a million thoughts going through his head, though was brought out of his thoughts when he felt Pichu rub his head on Ash's chest. It's alright, Ash, we're your friends. We aren't angry at you for not telling us, we are just worried about you. Pichu said softly. Pichu began to feel droplets of water fall onto the back of his head. When he looked up he saw tears falling from Ash's eyes. Iko couldn't tell anyone. He said that he would kill you guys if I'd told anyone. I didn't want to lose you guys. Ash stutters out, and suddenly clutches onto Pichu and begins crying hard onto the little mouse's fur. The three Pokémon were in shock at what Ash had told them, but for those within the shadows were enraged at what Ash had said. Enough was enough, and this was going to be dealt with here and now. Ash, Zorua started, but another voice joined the conversation. Hatchling, the new voice said, causing Ash to tense up at the voice. Ash then clutched Pichu to his chest, fearing the unknown owner of the new voice. Calm down, Hatchling, I won't hurt you. I was the one who brought your friends here, the voice said, seemingly coming from all over Ash's bedroom. Ash began to shake harder and clutched Pichu tighter to his shaking body. Ash's eyes began to frantically search his room, in search of the owner of this new voice. Where are you? Ash asked. Suddenly, in one of the darker corners of his bedroom, a pair of glowing red eyes could be seen coming from the shadows. Ash noticed the eyes and just stared at them. Soon some of the darkness began to move outwards, scaring Ash as two small paws came out of his walls, soon followed by a pure black snout. Soon its small body comes out, with two long feet. And finally a long skinny tail with a bit of a bulge at the end. It was floating in the air and was staring right at Ash, who just clutched onto Pichu tighter than before, staring at the floating cat with blood-red eyes and pitch-black fur. The floating cat then moved towards Ash, slowly so that he doesn't scare the hatchling more than he is already. Just as the floating cat was about a few inches away from Ash, it stopped moving forward and moved its tail upward and moved it towards Ash's forehead and poked it so fast that Ash didn't have time to flinch back. Slowly Ash began to calm down, his iron-like grip on Pichu was loosening and his shaking seemed to lessen as well. The floating cat then removed its tail from Ash's head. Feeling better now, hatchling? The cat asked and got a slightly dazed nod from Ash. This caused a slight giggle to come out of the cat's muzzle. That's good. Oh, I haven't introduced myself yet. I am Shadow Mew, leader of the Fallen Ones. The now proclaimed Shadow Mew states, causing Ash to slightly tilt his head to the side. I've never heard of a Shaw Adomi Mew before. Ash said, and S. Mew, Shadow Pokemon will have an S before their name. Just shook his head. Well, I was caught when I was younger by a group known as Team Cypher. They are a truly evil organization, turning the gentlest of Pokemon to cold-hearted killer. They had done research and found a way to seal off a Pokemon's emotions, which made them lose their sense of good and bad. They were destroyed along with their research after a few years. But sadly, though they had decided to attack the only place where the purification process was along with the notes and the professor, so that no one could restore a shadow Pokemon to its original state. Mew said, explaining the whole deal behind shadow Pokemon. Ash though paled as he heard the explanation. Why would they do something like that? Ash asked, and thankfully he seemed to get used to S presence. Just shook his head. I don't know, hatchling. Most humans are true monsters like that thing downstairs, said, glaring at the door leading out of Ash's room. Sighing turned back towards Ash, a slight gleam in his eyes. Hatchling, I have a deal for you, and I think it would be one that you would really enjoy, states, grabbing Ash's attention as well as the attention of the other Pokémon in the room and those within the shadows. I want to offer you a place in our little group. You will still be able to go to the human school and become a trainer. If you want to take this deal, there is a catch too. We will be removing the thing downstairs. It's your decision to make. Mew states, causing Ash to go wide-eyed and a few of the beings in the shadows to become wide-eyed too. Tilting his head down, Ash began to think about the deal. Seconds ticked by, then minutes. 5 minutes later, Ash finally spoke, though it was rather silent. What would happen if I agree to this? Is there something else I need to know? He asked. Mew just floated closer to him. He will be removed from here. You won't ever see it again. Mew answered. Ash then spoke up, tilting his head upward to stare at Mew. But wouldn't people notice that he has gone missing? Ash was suddenly interrupted by Mew. They won't even notice he's gone. I and 2 other members of our little pack can shapeshift to look like anyone. We can look like and sound like the thing downstairs. Now I'll ask this again, Hatchling. Do you accept my offer? Mew states, causing Ash to go silent again. He remains silent and then looks over at his little plush toy, the last thing he has from his mother. His eyes then harden slightly before he looks back at the floating Pokémon before him. I would like to accept your offer, but I do have a favor to ask of you, Ash said quietly. Mew nodded his head for Ash to continue. I want you to make him pay. When you are removing him, I want you to do it for as long as you want. Ash said, tears falling down his face as he began to remember the night of his mother's passing. Just nodded and used his tail to wipe away some of the tears that were falling. Don't worry, Hatchling, we will make sure that he pays for what he has done to you. Mew states, a gleam in his eyes that seemed to give Ash some form of reassurance. Smiling back, though still having tears falling down his face, Ash had given the Pokémon a silent but grateful thanks before passing out, his crying and amount of things that had happened to him today greatly exhausting him. His head then fell onto the pillow, the small smile still on his face still present. Sighed at the sight before turning towards, and alright, I want the 3 of you to stay here with the Hatchling. I will also have 2 more stay behind too. Then turned towards the shadows and signaled for someone to come out. The first being to come out was an Umbreon, the dark type Eevee evolution, but this one had a different coloration. Instead of the rings around its body being a bright yellow, they were a crimson color instead. The Umbreon's crimson eyes were instead a bright yellow. Its fur was still a sleek black color. The second figure was an Absol. This one was a different coloration as well. Its fur was pure black, almost like Umbreon. It has red skin and almond-shaped, dark crimson eyes. The fur on his head was shaped like a crescent moon, and the top part of the crescent was more orb-like. The Absol has a dark red crescent-shaped horn sticking out of the left side of its head. It also had a scythe-like tail which was dark red as well. Absol, Umbreon, I want the both of you to stay here and keep watch over the hatchlings here, alright? I'll be back in an hour or so you 2 can have the finishing blows. States before vanishing back into the shadows. Umbreon just looks at the spot her leader vanished into before turning around and jumping onto the Ash's bed. She then curled up at Ash's feet and kept an eye out for if the door opens. Absol, on the other hand, sat down in one of the corners of the room and kept watch over Ash and the others. Ash's friends, though, they quickly curled themselves around Ash's body and tried to stay awake but quickly joined their friend in sleep.